Chuck Duran.
Welcome to another awesome episode of VO Buzz Weekly.
That's right. And anybody out there who has interest in live announcing and promos, today's your day. We have Cedarine Fox on the show, and she is completely awesome, very, very cool lady. But she's also the voice of the Oscars 2013. You've heard her there and many, many other live announce shows. Also tons and tons of promos, and we're going to be talking with her.
Yes.
Hey,
very cool.
But before we do that, I want to know something about that bracelet because I was talking to Stacy earlier. Where'd you get that?
Well, actually, it's two different ones, Chuck.
I want that.
This one is from our friend Ann Ganguza of VO Peeps. She gave this to me. Hi, Ann. And they're both from goodworksmakeadifference.com.
Oh, cool.
And
Is this from there too?
That one I got you, yes. That one is from there. And they donate a portion of their proceeds to various charities, whether it's for education or it's very, 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 very cool company. So go to their website, find your thing, but they have really nice messages on them, like give back and speak kindness and forgiveness and come together. And
so not only are we looking cool, but in the process of looking cool, we're helping out. We're giving back.
Yes.
This is awesome.
You know
that
me,
rocks.
I love my charities. So, all right,
let's do it. It's time for some Cedarine Fox.
Absolutely. Guys, our guest takes storytelling to a whole new level. You have heard her as the live announcer for the Oscars, the People's Choice Awards, the Producers Guild Awards, and so many other things. You've heard her on the major networks and CNN and ESPN in promos. She is also the artistic director of the Word Theater and a sought-after voiceover coach. We are so excited to get buzzed with the lovely and fabulous Cedering Fox.
Woohoo!
Can't beat that for an introduction.
Right? You need to carry her in your pocket.
Introduction?
Introduction.
That's
We
right.
got the crowd screaming. You hear that?
I do.
She only
Cedarine
works in
Fox.
live settings.
I always tell Cedarine
Times like this, we wish we had a studio audience, but we don't.
that her name sounds like a rock band, doesn't it? Cedarine Fox, live. I love
yeah.
that.
Oh, yeah.
Welcome to VO Buzz Weekly.
So nice.
So glad to
do
be
I,
here.
do I
Thank you
kiss
for
the
being
ring,
here.
Chuck?
You don't. No, you don't have to.
I
Not
kiss the
everybody
ring?
has to kiss the ring.
Maybe later.
Maybe
It's
later.
very-
But you could look at
I
it,
do feel like
feel
a
it.
star just touching it, just touching
He's
the
obsessed
star.
with the stars. He likes the stars.
Well, let's get right to it. I want to know something, and the cool thing is that I love when we don't know. Well, she knows everything about you.
Oh.
I, on the other hand, I like to live on the edge. What did you do before voiceover, and how did you get into voiceover?
BV, before voiceover.
Before voiceover,
Exactly.
BV.
Many centuries ago,
She's gonna.
I was born in a foreign land. Actually, I started acting when I was very young in New York. When I was about 6 years old, I think my parents took me to see my first Broadway play. And I knew then that I wanted to act, and I started acting and dancing then. And went to an incredible performing arts camp when I was 11 and 12 that completely changed my life.
Wow.
And I was the youngest person there. I was 11 the first year, and it was kids up till 18. But I always had this incredibly low voice. And when I was 2, I had this incredibly low voice.
Oh, wow.
So it was an all-girls camp. So, of course, I got the parts of all the boys, right?
Yeah.
So I was there doing Threepenny Opera, Tiger Brown. They'll chop them to bits because they like their hamburgers raw. And the director took a real shine to me. And he was somebody who, in addition to being the drama director at this camp, was directing a whole cast. He had a whole cast of actors up in Massachusetts that summer to do an adaptation of a Kurt Vonnegut book. And so he took a shine to me and let me sort of hang around. And when I left that summer, he gave me a copy of Herman Hesse's Damien. And he said, they all called me Foxy. May you get where you are going. May you know where that is. Always.
Wow.
And he signed his name, Myron.
That's nice.
And that kept the spark going, and acting and dancing. You were a dancer, and I think dancing has a lot to do with voiceover.
Yep.
Because rhythm, music,
yeah.
music. You're a musician.
Yep.
You're a dancer. I danced every summer intensely, 8 hours a day.
Yeah.
Went off to college, was kind of the star actress there. Went off to graduate school at NYU Tisch School of the Arts, and really loved the voice coach who came in, who was a very, very esteemed voice coach. That we were doing Shakespeare and things like that. And when I got out, I fell immediately into great acting gigs. I was at the Williamstown Theater Festival. I was on Broadway within a year of graduating from the MFA program at Tisch. And at the same time, I was kind of discovered by the vice president of Saatchi and Saatchi Advertising, who
You
heard
were
me.
discovered.
I was actually, it was like sitting at Schwab's drinking a soda, and then the guy heard me. And I was at a party, and he said, "Where'd you get that voice?" And I said, I was born with it. It was kind of the family joke that I would be this 2-year-old come out and go, "Hello," and everybody would like
Look for the ventriloquist.
What? And I remember when I was in high school, and I would get the parts like Nettie Fowler in Carousel. And I don't know if you know this, but Nettie Fowler has to sing a high G in "When You Walk Through a Storm," right? And they had 120 kids in this production. And I was, because of my low voice, I could play the old lady, right? I was always the man or the old lady or the old lady or the, whatever.
Older lady.
Yeah. And the mother, the grandmother. Now I'm the mother of the entire company of Carousel. And, but the public school I was in, they said, well, Cedering, you can do it. I go, no, I don't go above a middle C. You don't really understand. Like, I play piano, I cannot go above a middle C. They go, you can. They sent me for 3 voice lessons. The vocal teacher said, "You're a mezzo-soprano." I'm like, "No, I'm not. No, I'm not. No, I'm not." And I went in, and the only 3 times in my life I have hit a high G was the 3 with 120 people backstage going, "Please," because I couldn't do it in any of the rehearsals. Like insane. Said it. Kids were sending me cookies, and everybody thought I was this,
cool is
this
that?
50-year-old, and I was 16.
Yeah.
Anyway, so cut to 8 years later, 7 years later, I was like 23.
Yeah.
And I'm at this party, and the guy from Saatchi and Saatchi says, "You should be doing voiceovers." Actually at that time, it was right before the Broadway play. I was starring in something at La Mama, making $75 a week. We had just had a review in the New York Times. I got a rave review on the back page, Friday, New York Times, and I could not pay my rent. I was waitressing. I was doing, I was like really struggling.
Yeah.
And throwing myself on the bed. I get the review in the Times, and I'm like, but I can't make a living. And all through NYU in those days, they said, "Don't prostitute yourself. You cannot do commercials and these horrible, horrible things."
Yeah.
And I kind of thought, I'm an actress, I'm a thespian, I'm of the theater, we'll make it work,
I will stop and I will be authentic.
Exactly.
Yes.
And by the time this guy, Eric Weber at Saatchi and Saatchi, said, "You should be doing voiceovers," I'm like, okay.
Is it more than 75 a week?
Okay.
Yeah.
And he threw me into a studio at Saatchi, said to the engineer, "Put her on some spots. Take the voice out, put her on some spots." I tried to do it, and I thought, well, this actually requires a little bit of skill.
Yeah. Right?
Do you think he would notice if I came back in a few days? I asked the engineer. He goes, no, go. And I was completely broke. Somebody recommended a vocal coach who's a working talent in New York today, Joan Baker. And I called her up, and I said, "I'm really broke." And she said, "Come see me." She was so nice. And she said, "If I had your voice and my experience, I would be the richest woman in the world.
Wow.
So I'm going to coach you for free, and when you make some money, pay me."
Wow.
And I went back.
never
I went
happens.
back a week later, and they put me down on some spots. Leslie Feldman, who was the casting director at Saatchi, went on to, she's been at DreamWorks for years. She said, "You got the goods." Sent me to 4 agents who all started working with me, and I booked my 6th audition, national network commercial, and never stopped. And because in New York back in the day, and it's still that way sometimes, which is really, really nice, but you actually go right to the advertising agency.
Oh, okay.
So the producers are sitting there, and you're, looking at the producers, and you do the thing. You ready? Yeah, you do the thing, and then they're like, okay, that was good. You want to pick up the first half and slow down the second half, just brighten it up a little bit. You do it, and they're like, okay, fine, thank you. And then, well, actually, I have an idea. And okay, and you do it, and they go, oh, that was really nice. What's your name again? Right? And then you start working.
Yeah.
And you start working. And it's very
That is
different
so
now.
cool,
it's so,
man. It is
I mean, it was
different.
really, it was an amazing thing. And it's different coming to Los Angeles because then I was immediately working with all these women who were so much older than me because of my low voice. And it was kind of fantastic. It was really fantastic. And I was freelance and working with these different agents. Then I found an agency that I loved and I signed with them. And she was screaming my name from the rooftops, this woman. And I really was having a fantastic time. And then I decided to move to Los Angeles.
LA.
Which is a whole different ballgame. So I had a spot running for AT&T.
Yeah.
That was when I came to visit Los Angeles. It was on the Academy Awards, and I was with a
dramatic
bunch of people.
foreshadowing.
I was
Love
with a
it.
bunch of people watching the Academy Awards, and I said, "Oh, that's my AT&T spot." And one of the guys there was in the business, and he said, "Oh, you're really good." And I said, "Thank you." And I'm thinking about moving here. He goes, "Oh, I could totally hook you up." And he called Rita
love
Venari.
that.
He called Rita Venari.
Okay.
Wow.
And I signed with Rita. So, agent, move here. Can't get arrested.
Really?
Cannot get arrested. So, like by month 3, I'm sort of saying, do is there anything I could be doing better? Or is there, no, you're great. So 6 months go by, now I'm starving again. I've got the job working for an art
noodles.
magazine, right? I'm like, what am I doing? I left New York, why did I do this? And, we're now like a year into the thing. And one of the agents said to me when I asked, they said, look, we put our best people on it. So if we put 14 women on a thing and there are another 10 or 12 agencies doing the same thing, they're not going to listen to all those people. They're going to cut ahead to the people that they want to hear.
Right.
So this is in the olden days, guys. Because then if they had listened to 12 women from 12 agencies, we got 144 takes, no problem. You could almost do that.
Right.
But they
Right.
didn't. They would listen to 5 or 6, Now, I had a job about 7 years ago in New York. It was for a Purina cat chow commercial.
Chow, chow, chow.
And I was in New York. I just happened to be in New York doing word theater. And so it didn't matter. It was a San Francisco agency. And so they booked a studio for me. And I go into the studio and I get behind the microphone and I put on my earphones. And the guy from San Francisco, the producer, goes, so I listened to 374 reads on this. I could have picked you or another 75 people, but I picked you because you did 6 different takes and they were all good. And I'm thinking, he's saying this to make me feel good, I think. But this does not make me feel good. What do you mean you're listening to 374 takes? 374 people are auditioning for this? What happened to the 20 women in New York?
Yeah.
What happened to the at least 144 women in Los Angeles? It's so that's when I knew Cat was out of the bag and the internet had completely changed because it was around that time that Voice Bank and everything. I don't know if I have my dates right, but something like that. So it really kind of was a game shifter. But when I came to Los Angeles, the real miracle that happened is somehow my tape got over to KCAL, and they wanted to hire a woman. It was quite a novel idea to fill in for the male staff announcer Well, he went on vacation for 3 weeks, and they hired me.
Wow.
And at the end of 3 weeks, I had a promo trailer tape. I was doing things like, Arnold Schwarzenegger's got a big gun, and he knows how to use it. Raw deal tonight at 8.
Right,
that
right,
kind of
right,
stuff.
right,
And
right.
like, and then I remember right after doing that spot, I went to his restaurant in Venice,
Yeah,
and I was
yeah.
like, oh my God, Arnold, guess what I just said today? Should I say it to you? No, I don't think so.
No.
I won't do that. But it was kind of fun.
Can I get a free app?
Yeah, it was really it was,
free
yeah,
app.
Arnold Schwarzenegger. Anyways, but I was doing,
Yeah.
I was doing everything for KCAL, just
Yeah.
absolutely everything. And then my agents at SBV sent the reel over to ABC, and I got hired by Eyewitness News. Went in there, the producer said, "Oh my God, you have the perfect promo voice. You have the authority of a man, but the warmth of a woman. You're going to work so much." And from that, it was just a little skip over to ABC
Yeah.
Network. And after about 2 years of doing all the daytime stuff, that was a great story. But after 2 years of doing all the daytime stuff, they started me on primetime and late night and morning shows, and then NBC picked me up, and then I was doing everything over there, and then CBS and CNN, a lot of CNN.
Yeah, and ESPN. I mean, you
ESPN.
really broke
yeah,
through.
HGTV. I love promos.
Promos are
I
great.
know.
I was
Me
coaching
too.
a woman, a very talented woman this morning who really doesn't like promos.
Mm-hmm.
And I said to her, my job is to get you to love everything, even the worst piece of copy.
Yeah.
Because of word theater, I approach everything like a story. Doesn't matter if it's a 5-second spot or a narration or a commercial. It's always a story. And how I love words. So I think about what was the writer. It doesn't matter if they're at the greatest agency in the world or if they're slogging away at a local affiliate station with no time to do things. They are trying to tell a story, and they're trying to go from here to there
Right.
and communicate with that person so that to make the world a smaller place.
Yeah.
So everything starts I and you.
And you.
And then how do we keep this communication going so that we feel that there are other human beings in the world?
Right.
And the only reason to have voices anymore with the internet and all that stuff is to really feel the vibrations of another
Absolutely.
live
Yeah.
human.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to. I like quoting people back to themselves. I read this. You were quoted as saying. You said, "I love words and I love language and I like using words to get people's attention about something. I think of words as very active, dynamic, living creatures."
Do you remember saying
and
that?
I love that.
That's how I think.
Yeah.
That's how I think. I try to.
Well, and it comes through in your work. It's so clear when you hear your work that it's not just words on a page. You are really taking people from a beginning, middle, and end on a journey through a story, even if it's 15 seconds.
Thank you. That's really what I'm after, and I just feel that for people who are nervous, by starting to really appreciate how a sentence, how a story is put together, and then it's made of these little building blocks called words, and I think, who came up with that word? Who came up with that? Together, together. Or
Right,
you know what I
right,
mean?
right. Yeah,
It's
yeah,
like,
yeah,
think
yeah.
of a word like together, we, or we, like, think of the sound. When it's we, aren't we just gathering each
Yeah.
other together?
Yeah.
So there's all that energy in there, and in the vowels, that's all the emotions in
Yeah.
the vowels. And so you don't have to ever be nervous. You just have to really see and feel what you're trying to communicate, and then pluck the word out of the universe that approximates that feeling or what you're seeing as closely as possible, so I can communicate.
Communicate.
That's pretty good, huh?
Wow. I always think of we, it's such a little word, but it means so much.
Yeah, there are no
You know what I
little
mean?
words.
So, yeah.
I mean, just think I.
I. Yeah. You. The whole you. I mean,
Like,
it's
I mean,
so much.
You know, you're in love with this woman.
Yeah. Like
And
nobody's
that's
business.
that. There's no bigger word.
Yeah.
Y-O-U, and it's all
Yeah.
these vowel sounds. You. You could just keep going forever.
Yeah.
Consonants tend to stop the flow, like
Right.
look,
Yeah.
look,
Look.
right?
Yeah.
Because you could just go like look.
Yeah.
You know, it's a bird, it's a plane,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So that's the kind of thing I think about. And so with this woman today, I have a feeling I'm going to get her there to love promos. Promos are
I know, I love promos.
all
too.
trying to make the world a small place.
Yeah.
Yeah, and every spot, commercial, promo, they all have the answer to how to make your life better.
Oh, actually, I wanted to ask you. Okay, so when you get a promo script, what is your first step towards bringing it to life? What do you,
You know,
if you can capsulize it? I know.
well,
it's-
I can because I've been teaching for the last 6 years, ever since Joan Baker's book came out.
Yeah.
And this was amazing. The very first panel discussion in Los Angeles. 12 people in the panel: Don, Joe Cipriano, Dave Fenoy, you know, the gang. Bill Ratner, all my pals, and 12 people in the audience selected a number out of 300 or however many people there were, 400 people. And they would be directed by somebody on the panel. And I was the very last person to go. And I clearly got the person with absolutely no talent. Like, and in 60 seconds, I had her sounding like somebody who could do voiceovers.
Wow.
And I got rushed afterwards by people saying, you know, I want to study
I
with
want
you. I
some
was
of
like,
that, yeah.
no. I don't teach. I don't,
Yeah.
you know, I voiceover, I run word theater, I'm a producer, I'm a director. No, I'm busy. And they're like, please. And I thought, what would I say? Because interestingly, before Joan's book, which really helped me sort of synthesize my careers, I you know how they say in Los Angeles, everybody wants to know what you do and they want to know you for one thing. I would like have my voiceover life. I would have my word theater life. I would have my producing, directing, feature film life, and never the twain would meet. And what I realized in the course of teaching that very first class, they ended up with, I said, I'm not doing anything, get me 10 people and I'll teach 5 Saturdays in my house. And they got me 14 people and we did 5 Saturdays and everybody's like, please do it again. And we did 5 more and they all went on. It was a very interesting group of lawyers, voiceover artists, actors. It was really fascinating group, and I learned how I work because I never knew it. I never knew how I did it before, and that's why teaching is so invaluable. So many people don't really understand what they're saying.
True.
Yes.
And so the first thing I do is try to understand what's the story. It's always what's the story, and try to understand. You know what? There's always like very often a little gimmick in there. I was working on a script with this woman today, and it was a local spot for Lasix, Dr. So-and-so, and he was speaking. The woman in the spot in the commercial is going, you know, have you ever felt, you know, or do you wear glasses? Have you ever said this? Oh no, it's fine.
Yeah.
Say bye to fine. You know, say now turn fine into fini. And
Right.
bonjour, to, you know,
Yeah.
it's like really tacky.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
she's like, I can't do this. This is horrible. And so what we have to do is respect the writing, no matter
Right.
how bad it
Can't
is,
judge it, yeah.
and go into, you know, have fun. Our job is to always have fun. You guys always have fun. all of my friends who are great voiceover talents, Joan Baker, all the guys we just mentioned, always have fun because we're just playing with words, so what's the story, right? And what is the little gimmick in there? So, Finny, oh my God, bonjour, so get into that spirit and then look for the clues. And then there's usually a beginning, middle, and end, even in a 10-second spot, right? So what's the opening? The opening is the one that's usually the grabber. Do you suffer?
Yeah.
Right.
And then, or whatever it is. And then what's the solution? And what's the solution? And then understand, and then what's the character of the solution? You can't play the end at the beginning.
Right.
You got to, do you
Yeah.
suffer?
Yeah.
Suffer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got to really suffer.
Yeah.
It's like a song.
Right.
But
The
hope.
verse, the intro, the chorus, the pre-chorus, right?
Yeah. But hope is here. Whatever
Yep.
it is, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
The light is always at the
Yeah.
end of the tunnel, yeah.
And then I ask a lot of questions. So like I just said, I just pulled out of the air. But hope is here. Where? Here. Because hope is here. Like,
Right.
Where did it go?
I don't see it.
Where is
Has
that?
anyone seen my hope?
I know. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
like, what are we talking about? And what is here
Yeah.
is where, and what is where. So, hope. Think about that word. Say that word. Hope.
Yeah.
I do this unconsciously now, but
Right.
it's been unbelievably teachable. I have been astonished and so gratified that many top,
Yeah.
very successful people come for work. People who are making a solid living exclusively doing voiceovers come, and they say to me that it's really changed them and that they think about it all the time, because in our culture we are not thinking about the building blocks of the story and the building block of the sentence, the building block, and it's just,
Yeah.
and so I always kind of think of it almost like the yellow brick road. It's like you step on like for a game, you step on the word and it lights up, like you bring it to life, right? Hope. Where does that live in the universe? Where's up? Where's down?
Right.
Where's practical? Middle of the road. A building. They're solid. They're coming up from the ground.
Yeah.
Grounded for life, right?
Yeah.
Once you start, I try to get everybody to make sculptures with the word.
Yeah.
To make three-dimensional, and then plus your whole body is working. I never tell anybody to lie around going, opening their voice, me. No, you don't have to do it. You have to really just become the word. Think of the word. It's a little bit of onomatopoeia sometimes, but the person has to always be connected because we're only the vessel, right?
Yeah.
And you're going to say hope differently than I am because you come to it with a lifetime of experiences, so you become the vessel. Or you become the vessel.
Right.
Yeah.
How would you say? HOPE.
Hope.
Yeah. It does live up there, doesn't it? Doesn't live down there.
No.
Hope.
Hope.
Even if you have a low voice.
Right.
Martin Luther
Right.
King would go, hope. And you'd be like,
Yeah.
in a balloon, right?
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
floating
Yeah,
up
yeah,
there.
yeah.
Your
Yeah.
life is changing.
So I love that. So
Yeah.
you're teaching people to look at a piece of paper and instead of seeing words, to see emotion, color, right?
But it's also
Stories.
your experience as a dancer, that visceral,
Yeah.
that awareness, like it's like the words inhabit you.
Yeah.
It's not just, they're not hitting you, they actually
They
go
live,
within
they
you.
live, they
Yeah.
live, yeah. And so I say inhabit the words, but inhabit you, and the words inhabit you also. So it's a dance. It's always a dance, and it's very musical.
Well, that's all we have for part 1 with Cedarine Fox, but we'll be back next week with part 2.
In the meantime, keep up with us on Facebook, Twitter, and Pinterest, you guys, at VO Buzz Weekly. Take care until we see you again, and just remember, you always have time for a little buzz.